Dr. Mumba, I am hosting today, but I see you are on. So did you want to say a few words or?
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this December grand rounds for the Center for Substance Use Research and Related Condition. Thank you to Dr. Tricia Weedy, who is going to be hosting us today. She is one of our executive council members for the center. And so, Tricia, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for having me. Dr. Mumba, I am, as Dr. Mumba said, on the Executive Council for CSIRC. I also am the program coordinator for the addiction recovery academic programming here on our campus. I am delighted to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Evans Kyei. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. He's a postdoctoral fellow at the Capstone Center for Substance Use Research and Related Conditions, CSIRC, at the University of Alabama. He earned his PhD in nursing from the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and brings over a decade of experience in healthcare and academia. His research focuses on addressing mental health disparities and substance use through community-engaged, evidence-based approaches. Dr. Kyei has been recognized with prestigious fellowships, including the Rappaport Public Policy Fellowship from the Harvard Kennedy School, and is deeply committed to advancing health equity and improving care delivery for vulnerable populations across the U.S. So he's here today and is going to speak to us about an incredibly important topic. And what we'll do is listen to his talk and hold our questions until the end, unless we have a clarifying question that we really need answered during the talk. And then we'll ask him questions at the end, and hopefully it will spark a meaningful conversation. So thank you, Dr. Kyei, for joining us and for speaking to us about this topic. And I will give it to you.
Thank you. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. Do you see my screen? Okay. Thank you. So my name is Evans Kyei, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Substance Use Research and Related Conditions. And today I'm presenting on psychological stress among individuals receiving government-assisted housing. So this presentation will provide an overview of our study exploring psychological stress among individuals receiving government-assisted housing. We will walk through the introduction, also walk through the housing as a social determinant of health, research objectives and significance, then also analyze findings from the 3 analysis that were conducted, and also talk you through the future research directions and interventions. So housing is more than a physical structure. It is the foundation of health and well-being, and stable housing provides safety, security, and a base for managing daily life, fostering emotional stability and social connections. It enables access to education, employment, and healthcare while supporting physical and mental health. In contrast, housing instability, frequent moves, overcrowding, or even eviction threats create significant stress and anxiety levels. It disrupts routines, weakens social support, and also increases exposure to unsafe environments. This instability is strongly linked to poor mental health outcomes such as depression and anxiety, and worsens physical health by limiting access to healthcare and health living conditions. Recognizing housing as a critical social determinant of health is very essential for addressing the disparities and promoting holistic well-being through targeted interventions and policies. WHO defined housing as an essential social determinant of health, shaping the physical, mental, and social well-being of individuals and communities. It serves as a crucial foundation for overall health, influencing multiple dimensions of life. Now, the physical environment of housing, including safety, air quality, and structural conditions, directly affect health outcomes. Secure and well-maintained housing reduces risks of injuries, exposure to harmful pollutants, and chronic conditions caused by inadequate living conditions. From a mental health perspective, housing stability provides a sense of security and reduces stress. Conversely, instability, whether due to frequent moves, overcrowding, or even threats of eviction, exacerbates anxiety and depression, creating a significant psychological distress. Access is also another critical dimension of housing influence. Proximity to healthcare facilities, educational institutions, and employment opportunities also plays a pivotal role in determining the quality of life and overall well-being. Stable housing often serves as a gateway to these resources, while instability can create barriers to access. For individuals receiving government-assisted housing, these challenges are often compounded by the social stigma and environmental challenges, such as unsafe neighborhoods and substandard housing conditions. Stigma associated with receiving housing assistance can also lead to discrimination and social isolation, further impacting mental health. Additionally, living in under-resourced areas can expose residents to higher crime rates, limited healthcare options, and fewer economic opportunities, perpetuating cycles of poverty and distress. Addressing these interconnected challenges is vital for improving health equity and ensuring that housing fulfills its role as a social determinant of health. This study is essential because government-assisted housing programs are designed to enhance housing stability and improve the lives of low-income individuals and families. While these programs provide critical support, evidence suggests that residents continue to experience significant levels of psychological distress. Persistent stress among individuals in government housing raises critical questions about the effectiveness of these interventions. Are the programs fully addressing the diverse needs of residents, or are there gaps that leave individuals vulnerable to ongoing challenges? Furthermore, what specific stresses, such as the financial insecurity, stigma, or even program enrollment, or even environmental conditions persist even when the assistance are provided? There is also a notable gap in research on this population. While the impact of housing on physical health is often studied, limited attention has been given to the psychological stress experienced by residents in these programs. Quantifying this stress and understanding its drivers are critical steps toward designing interventions that address both the mental health needs of residents and the systemic barriers they face. The primary goal of this study are centered on understanding and addressing psychological stress among individuals receiving government-assisted housing. This study uses three validated tools, that is the PHQ-2, PHQ-8, and the Kessler scale, to measure psychological stress levels. Each measure provides unique insights ranging from quick screenings to a more detailed assessment of depressive symptoms and psychological distress. By analyzing the stress outcomes across these measures, the study aims to uncover persistent patterns such as the prevalence of stress and disparities that may exist based on demographic or socioeconomic factors. This step is crucial for understanding which subpopulations are affected and why. The findings will establish a foundation for investigations into a deeper root causes of stress in this population, and understanding these causes will also enable us to design targeted interventions to alleviate stress and improve overall mental health and well-being among residents of government-assisted housing. So now, let's explore how data tools used in this analysis provide valuable insights into psychological stress among this population. The National Health Interview Survey conducted annually by the CDC served as the primary data source for this study. Covering the years between 2021 to 2023, the NHIS provides a nationally representative data set, making it a valuable tool for understanding health trends across the US population. The NHIS focuses on key health metrics, including the health conditions such as chronic illness and acute conditions, health behaviors such as lifestyle factors impacting health, such as diet and exercise, access to healthcare such as availability and utilization of medical services. For this particular study, the NHIS was particularly significant because it captures the critical data on housing, mental health, and other social determinants of health. This comprehensive information allows for detailed analysis, including subgroup evaluations of individuals living in government-assisted housing or receiving government-assisted programs. The ability is to conduct subgroup analysis is vital for understanding the unique challenges faced by the specific populations, such as those in the housing assistance programs or receiving housing assistance. It enables targeted insights into disparities in health outcomes, including psychological stress, which forms the basis of this study. Now, the study design. The analysis for this study was conducted using Stata version 17, focusing on cross-sectional data from adults aged between 18 to 84 years. The primary aim was to evaluate psychological stress levels among individuals receiving government-assisted housing. Now, the key variables, which is the outcome variables, were stress and psychological distress as measured using validated scales, including the Kyei scale, which is the Kessler scale, the PHQ-8 and PHQ-2. The main predictor was receiving government-assisted housing programs. We applied survey weights to ensure that the estimates were reflective of the general population, and also performed descriptive statistics and logistic regression to determine odds of psychological distress among those receiving government-assisted housing. This method approach ensured robust and representative insights into the psychological challenges faced by this vulnerable population. Now, over the last 3 years, that is between 2021 to 2023, the NHIS used different instruments to measure psychological stress, requiring separate analysis for each survey cycle based on the properties of these tools. For the purpose of this analysis, psychological stress was indicated as either positive or negative based on the score on the particular instrument. For Kessler scale, it was used in 2021 to assess general psychological distress over the past 30 days. A score of 13 or higher indicated positive psychological distress. Now, in 2022, the NHIS administered the PHQ-8 to capture a broader range of depressive symptoms. A score of 10 or more indicated positive symptoms. And in 2023, which is the recent one, the NHIS administered the PHQ-2 for quick screening of depressive symptoms. A score of 3 or more indicative of what? Positive screening for depression. Each tool was selected for its validity and ability to capture the unique dimensions of stress. PHQ-2 provided a quick and efficient screening tool for depressive symptoms, identifying individuals at risk, and the PHQ-8 also expanded on the PHQ-2 by assessing a broader range of depressive symptoms, enabling deeper analysis, whilst the Kessler scale added a multidimensional perspective by measuring general psychological distress over the past 30 days. These tools not only quantify stress levels, but also reveal patterns and disparities within the US population. Now, let's begin with the first study in 2021. So the first analysis utilized the Kessler scale, which was administered in 2021 by the NHIS. And the objective was to assess psychological distress in a broader context. A score of 13 or higher indicated positive screening, and the weighted sample were over 63 million. Measures were the Kessler scale, receiving government-assisted housing, self-reported health status, and other social demographics, including sex, age, race, ethnicity, marriage status, and educational level. Now, for the descriptive analysis, participants receiving government assistance has significantly higher rates of psychological distress, with 84.5% screening positive on the Kyei scale. In contrast, only 16.4% of those not receiving assistance screened positive. For health status, psychological distress levels showed a clear relationship with self-reported health status. Individuals with excellent health predominantly screened negative, reflecting better mental health outcomes. Those reporting poor health had the highest rates of distress, with 41% screening positive, underscoring the significant link between declining physical health and increased psychological distress. For gender, females were more likely to experience psychological distress, with 65.6% screening positive compared to 34.4% in the males. This highlights notable gender disparities in mental health outcomes and burden of distress. When it comes to race and ethnicity, non-Hispanic whites had the highest rates of psychological distress with 63.8% screening positive, suggesting a greater prevalence of distress in this subgroup. For among the Hispanics, a smaller proportion of 15.5% screen positive, while a notable percentage of 25.2% screen negative, reflecting variability in distress levels. This analysis provides key insights into how factors such as government assistance, health status, gender, and race influence psychological distress, highlighting critical disparities that warrant further exploration. In the regression analysis, participants not receiving government assistance had reduced odds of psychological distress compared to those receiving assistance, with logs of ratio of negative 0.53 and odds ratio of 0.59. This suggests that individuals outside of assistance programs are less likely to experience distress. For health status showed a strong association with psychological distress. Participants reporting good health had 3.2 times higher odds of distress compared to those with excellent health, while those with poor had highest distress with 9.1 odds ratio. For gender, females had significantly higher odds of distress compared to males, with a log ratio of 0.79 and odds ratio of 2.20, highlighting gender disparities in psychological distress. For the age group, the odds of psychological distress decreased with advancing age, with 65 to 84 age group having the lowest odds of psychological distress or depression. This trend indicates that older adults are less likely to experience distress compared to younger adults in this population. For education, higher education levels were associated with reduced odds of distress. Participants with graduate level education had logs ratio of negative 0.67 and odds ratio of 0.51, suggesting a protective effect of advanced education on mental health. For gender and age interaction, a significant interaction was observed between gender and age, where females aged between 50 and 64 had substantially reduced odds of distress compared to younger males. And this interaction highlights the nuanced relationship between gender, age, and psychological distress. This analysis emphasized the complex nature of psychological distress influenced by socio-demographic factors such as health status and complex interactions among these variables. Now, from the second analysis that is using the PHQ-8, which utilized the 2022 dataset, the objective was to provide a more detailed understanding of depressive symptoms. A score of 10 or higher indicated positive screening or positive for depression, and the weighted sample were over 64 million. The measures included PHQ-8, receiving government assistance programs, self-reported health status, social demographics, that is the sex, age, race, ethnicity, marital status, and educational level. Now, for the descriptive analysis, participants receiving government assistance were significantly more likely to screen positive for depression, with 83.1% screening positive compared to 16.9% of those not receiving assistance. Conversely, the majority of participants not receiving assistance screened negative, reflecting lower depression levels in this group. Health status was also significantly associated with depression. Participants reporting poor health were most likely to screen positive for depression. Again, gender, where females were more likely to screen positive for depression compared to males, with 65 as against 35% in males. When it comes to race, non-Hispanic whites had the highest percentage of positive depression screening, and other racial groups had lower rates, with Hispanics at 19.9% and non-Hispanic Blacks at 17.6% and non-Hispanic Asians at 2.7%. Again, education was strongly associated with depressive symptoms, with higher education having lower chance of depression. Marital status. In this study, single participant had the highest percentage of positive depression compared to those with married and living with partner, indicating that relationship status plays a significant role in depression outcomes. And these findings provide a foundation for further investigation into the root cause of these observed disparities. Now, for the regression analysis of the second study, participants not receiving government assistance had significantly lower odds of depression compared to those receiving assistance. And this indicates that individuals outside of assistance programs are less likely to experience depressive symptoms. Health status was also a strong predictor of depression, and participants with poor health had markedly higher odds of depression of 12.2 compared to those with excellent health. Now, when it comes to gender, females had significantly higher odds of depression than males, with odds ratio of 1.76%. This highlights gender disparities in depression outcomes. For age, the odds of depression decrease with age, with participants aged 65 to 84 having the lowest odds of depression compared to those in the 18 to 24 category, suggesting that younger individuals are higher risks of depression. When it comes to race, compared to non-Hispanic whites, the odds of depression were significantly lower for non-Hispanic Asians, that is 0.34 odds ratio, and Hispanics 0.48 odds ratio. These findings point to racial disparities in depression prevalence. Higher levels of education were also associated with reduced odds of depression. Now, when it comes to marital status significantly influenced depression outcomes. Participants living with a partner had higher odds of depression, that is 1.49 odds ratio, compared to married individuals. Similarly, those who were never married or single also showed increased odds of depression as against those who were married. This analysis demonstrates that depression is influenced by multiple interconnected factors, including socioeconomic, demographic, and health-related variables. Now, the last analysis was conducted with the 2023 data set that is found using the PHQ-2 instrument. The objective was to screen for depressive symptoms in government-assisted housing residents or individuals receiving government assistance programs. Now, a score of 3 or higher indicated positive, whilst a score below 3 indicated negative, and the weighted sample was over 64 million. The measures were PHQ-2, government assistance programs, self-reported health status, socio-demographic status, including sex, age, race, ethnicity, marriage status, and educational level. Now, for the descriptive analysis, participants receiving government assistance were significantly more likely to screen positive for depression, with 82.4% screening positive compared to 17.6% of those not receiving assistance. Again, health status was significantly associated with depression, with participants with poor health had the highest rate of positive depression. When it comes to gender, females were again slightly more likely to screen positive for depression than males, indicating a modest gender disparity in depression prevalence. For race and ethnicity, positive depression screening varied across racial and ethnic groups in this analysis. Non-Hispanic whites had the highest rate of 53%, followed by non-Hispanic Black of 22.8%. Hispanic screened positive at a rate of 20.5%, while non-Hispanic Asians had the lowest rate of 3.8%. This analysis underscores the influence of government assistance, health status, gender, and race ethnicity on depression prevalence, highlighting the critical disparities that warrant targeted mental interventions and policies. Now, to the logistic regression analysis for the third study. Participants not receiving government assistance had significantly lower odds of depression compared to those receiving assistance, odds ratio of 0.60, and this suggests a strong association between receiving assistance and increased risks of depression. Health status showed a robust relationship with depression, and participants with poor health had markedly higher odds of depression compared to those with excellent health. For gender, females had slightly higher odds of depression compared to males. That's odds ratio of 1.18. However, in this study, this association was not statistically significant, suggesting that other factors may play a stronger role in influencing gender differences in depression screening among residents. The age and race interactions was checked, and participants identifying as non-Hispanic Black showed reduced odds of depression in specific age groups. Age 35 to 49 had odds ratio of 0.41, and age 65 to 84 had odds ratio of 0.31. These findings highlight protective factors with certain age and racial subgroups, suggesting that intersectional influences may mitigate depression risks for non-Hispanic Blacks individuals in these old age ranges. Now, based on these three analyses that were conducted, we realized that participants receiving government assistance consistently had higher odds of distress or depression across all measures, that is PHQ-2, PHQ-8, and the Kessler scale, emphasizing their heightened vulnerability. In contrast, participants not receiving assistance demonstrated reduced odds of distress with an odds ratio range between 0.59 and 0.69, highlighting a protective effect of not relying on assistance programs. Now, when it comes to health status, poor health status emerged as the strongest predictor of distress across all analyses, and participants with poor health had odds distress up to 9 times higher compared to those in excellent health, as demonstrated by the Kyei scale. This underscores the critical relationship between physical health and psychological health-being. For gender, females consistently exhibited higher odds of distress compared to males across all measures, and the Kessler scale in particular showed a significantly elevated odds ratio of 2.2 for females, reinforcing the gender disparity in psychological distress outcomes. These findings reflect consistent patterns across all measures, emphasizing the interplay of government assistance, health status, and gender in shaping mental health outcomes. They provide a strong foundation for targeted interventions to address these disparities. When it comes to age, older age groups consistently had lower odds of distress, with 65 to 84 age group showing the lowest risks across all analyses. In contrast, younger populations emerge as a higher risk group for mental health challenges, indicating a need for targeted interventions to address distress in these ranges. For race and ethnicity, Hispanics and non-Hispanic Asians consistently had lower odds of distress compared to non-Hispanic whites, with odds ratio as low as 0.36, which reflected on the Kessler scale. These findings suggest protective factors that may buffer against psychological distress in these groups, and non-Hispanic Blacks also exhibited mixed results, with odds of distress varying depending on the kind of scale that was used. When it comes to education, higher levels of education, particularly graduate or professional degrees, were consistently associated with reduced odds of distress across all the analyses, and individuals with graduate education had up to 50% reduction in odds of distress. When it comes to marital status, single individuals generally exhibited higher odds of distress compared to their married counterparts. While this association was evident across most analyses, it appeared weaker in certain measures, such as the PHQ-8, suggesting variability in how marital status influenced mental health outcomes depending on the instrument used. These findings reinforce the importance of social and educational factors in mitigating psychological distress, with targeted interventions potentially benefiting individuals with lower educational levels without marital support. So for some intersectional trends and interaction, older females, particularly those aged between 50 and 64, exhibited significantly reduced odds of distress compared to younger males with odds ratio of 0.23. And this suggests that age plays a protective role for females in reducing psychological distress, highlighting the nuanced relationship between gender and age in mental health outcomes. When it comes to gender and race interaction, distress levels varied across females of different racial groups, reflecting the importance of intersectionality in understanding mental health disparities. The variability underscores how the interplay between gender and race shapes the unique mental health experiences, requiring further exploration to identify protective and risk factors across subgroups. This interaction effects emphasize the complexity of psychological distress and the need for tailored approaches that account for overlapping socio-demographic influences. So this diagram here is a Venn diagram that shows the interconnectedness of these findings across the three analyses that were performed. At the intersection, we have poor health, gender being female, and government assistance being strong predictors of psychological distress. Now, these findings raise a critical question about the root causes of stress and potential interventions. So, in our next phase, we are going to conduct a qualitative exploration which will lead to an integrated understanding of these trends and also lead to integrated intervention. Now, to build on the findings on the current analysis, the next phase of research will focus on exploring the root causes of psychological distress in individuals living in government-assisted housing or receiving government-assisted programs. Key research questions will include what are the underlying causes of physiological stress in government-assisted housing. This will involve examining their personal, interpersonal, and systemic factors that contribute to distress. How do factors such as financial insecurity, stigma, and housing quality contribute to health challenges? These factors may act independently or in combination, exacerbating stress among this population. And what role do social support networks play in mitigating the stress? Investigating the availability, accessibility, and effectiveness of social support systems, both formal and informal, could help address this issue. We are proposing a qualitative study, conducting focus group with residents to explore shared experience and challenges, performing in-depth interviews to capture nuanced individual perspectives on stresses and coping mechanisms. Also engaging stakeholders, including housing program administrators, healthcare providers, and community leaders to understand the systemic barriers and potential intervention points. Data collection, analyze qualitative data using thematic coding to identify recurring themes and patterns related to financial insecurity, stigma, program enrollment, and housing quality. This phase will provide a deep insight into the lived experience of individuals in government-assisted housing or receiving government programs, uncovering actionable areas for intervention. By understanding the root causes, the study will aim to inform policies and programs that promote mental health and improve housing conditions for this population. Now, for our potential interventions, it will include peer support groups, housing counselors, where we will deploy specialized counselors to help residents navigate housing-related stress, such as resolving maintenance issues or understanding programs. We will also give policy recommendation in increasing financial support to reduce the economic stresses like utility bills or even repair costs. Also advocating for policies that ensure housing stability, such as extending assistance during transition, or even during job loss. And also integrating mental health service, that is incorporating mental health screenings and counseling into the housing programs. We will collaborate with healthcare providers to make therapy or psychiatric services accessible and affordable for these residents. When it comes to innovative solutions, we are hoping to develop telehealth platforms and mobile apps to provide easy access to therapy, stress management tools, and community resources, and also creating apps tailored to the needs of government-assisted housing residents, featuring guided mental health exercises, progress tracking, and direct connections to support networks. These interventions aim to address the root causes of psychological distress and leveraging community engagement, enhancing program benefits, and adopting innovative technologies. Together, they will provide a comprehensive approach to improving mental health outcomes and fostering resilience among individuals in government-assisted housing. Now, per these three analyses that we conducted, this was a cross-sectional design and also limit causal inferences, and self-reported data may also introduce some biases. We had limited exploration of specific stresses that predicted these depression scores. Example, neighborhood safety and discrimination, all these things were not captured in the NHI data set. And per this study, we've learned important things, the importance of using multiple stress measures for a comprehensive view, and also the value of integrating qualitative perspectives into future studies. Now, addressing housing as a social determinant of health. When it comes to policy implications, housing programs must prioritize mental health service, and policy should address stigma associated with government-assisted housing programs. And also, investment in housing quality and safety should be prioritized and considered essential. We're calling on policymakers, public health professionals, and housing authorities to collaborate to create a holistic solutions. In summary, psychological stress is prevalent among individuals in government-assisted housing. Consistent findings across PHQ-2, PHQ-8, and Kessler K-scale analysis is evident, and future research and interventions must address the root causes and promote holistic well-being for this population. In our next step, we conduct exploratory qualitative studies, develop pilot interventions, targeting key stressors, and also collaborate with stakeholders for community-driven solutions. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions and feedback.
Thank you, Dr. Kyei. That was incredible. Does anybody have questions or comments or discussion points?
Hi, Dr. Kyei. I think
Hi.
this is an incredible, information. And you have done this analysis so comprehensively. It was amazing to see how you have, with the framework of social determinants of health, how you have tried to see if that influences the depression or mental health in these individuals. And it was actually very interesting to see how, married people have more depression than the single. Is that right?
No,
Was it reverse?
yeah, reverse. People living
Okay.
with partner and single
Yes,
had
yes,
higher
yes. Oh,
scores,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was interesting because, when you will write the discussion of this paper, you will see how other researchers have found. Some of them have found like married people are more in stress and, mental health
Yeah.
issues versus single, but that always happens. Different data sets give us some, varied results, which is very interesting to see. And it was also nice to, see I was thinking about some other researches as well, how your research shows different results in terms of age.
Mhm.
The older population, as they grow older, they have, like in your results showed, I think they get less, they don't have much psychosocial stress
Yeah.
compared to that midlife age. And
Mhm.
whereas when you write, again, it will be interesting to, see the discussion of this paper
Yeah.
as you develop it. And it's a congratulations. It's a very, very important topic and much needed research. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comment. The paper has been accepted for publication in Journal
You
of
already sent
Psychosocial.
that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
So please share it with us when you
yeah,
will, when
yeah.
you will be
Once it
open.
gets out, I'll share it with the team.
It will be
Thank you.
nice. Yes.
Thank
Thank you so much for this.
Other questions, comments, discussion points?
I was gonna have a question, but he kind of addressed the question that I had at the end of the conversation about next steps and what he intends to kind of do with this research. But I just wanted to say, Evan, such a great and comprehensive study that you've done. And, this is such an understudied population, and yet there's so many psychosocial issues that arise from being in government assisted housing and things like that. What do you think would be the interplay with, I know this focus more on mental health and psychosocial well-being, but with substance use and how does that play a role in your future direction in terms of what you've discussed?
Thank you, Dr. Mumba. So actually, when people experience psychological distress, they tend to have different coping mechanisms. And per this analysis, we realized that the younger generation had higher scores of depression, and it's possible that they might go out and look for coping mechanisms. That is where the substance use piece also comes in. So in our qualitative study, we will try to explore whether they have any coping mechanism, they kind of use drugs or any other coping mechanism that they have been adopted to address this stress that they are feeling or they are experiencing. And that will bring more insights into whether they are kind of using substances or using any other form to address this psychological distress. So we have it on the tab. Thank you.
Great question. Hannah, you have your hand raised.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Yes, I believe you can hear me clearly.
Yeah.
Good. That was a great presentation, and I really appreciate how your presentation highlights the importance of considering the social determinants of health in housing policy. And for me, I look forward to the findings from your proposed qualitative research. That was
Okay.
a good work done. I was just struck by the statistics on the stress-related health issues, and to me, it's a good job. Thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
You're welcome.
There are questions or comments? Dr. Che, I have a just a discussion point as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your presentation, your research on this. It's incredible. All of the findings, when you're talking about policy issues, which I know is your main focus or one of your foci, is the nuances though that could be needed in policy, right? So
Yeah.
what do women in government assisted housing need? For example, some of like merging together that, the demographic findings with the government assisted housing findings. And so
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see what you're hearing in qualitative work from whom, right?
Yeah.
Who needs what additional
Yeah.
services, and how can you build a policy that will address those individual needs?
Yeah. 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 Very interesting. I was surprised myself to find that women had higher scores of these depression scores, and probably they have other responsibilities to take care of, and most of them are probably single parenting. So we would love to hear more about what they go through as parents or as single mothers too who live in government assisted housing programs. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
What a great field. I'm so glad you're leading this field.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. White.
Evans, I was just gonna say great insight, Trisha. I was also just going to say another point of additional analysis that you may want to consider is a number of years that someone has been in government assisted housing, and if there's any influence there with
Okay.
their outcomes. So
Yeah.
it might just, it's one additional analysis, but I think it might also, when you're thinking about policy and thinking about intervention development, it might help you to really know at what specific timeframes are specific services needed or priority intervention points for us to be able to mitigate the negative outcomes. So that's
Yeah.
another aspect that you might.
Yeah. Thank you.
about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, discussion points?
Great job.
Okay, yeah, great
Thank you.
job. Mercy, do you want
Thank you.
to add anything before we head out?
I just want to thank Dr. Kyei for presenting this very important work. This is our last grand rounds for the year, so I want to thank all of our presenters for this year. We've had amazing topics. If there's particular presenters or scientist scholars you would love to see, please reach out to myself and Trisha and Nikaya to give us those names and their research areas of interest. What we're trying to do is to really expose all our faculty, affiliates, and the world of substance use to the ever-growing research that is out there, so we can all learn from each other, so we can also build collaborations and partnerships, and also really advance the science of substance use research and related conditions. So thank you, everyone. We will see you in the new year. Because of how the academic calendar works, our first Wednesday in January will be before we come back formally. So our next grand rounds is going to be in February. I believe it's February 5th. We're going to have Dr. Crosby from UAB. She's going to be speaking on her program of research and all the work that they're doing with her Center for Pain and Substance Use over at UAB. And then we'll have another presenter in March, and that's going to be March the 5th. But I do want to highlight the fact that our annual lectureship is going to be in April. That's always in April. So please be on the lookout for communication coming. If you have highlights that you want us to highlight you on our social medias, you went to a conference, you had a grant funded, etc., please reach out to Nikaya and I, and we're happy to celebrate with you and celebrate you and let the world know what important work you're doing. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I wish everyone a happy holiday season. I hope you get some rest.
Yeah.
and spend some time with loved ones and all of that good stuff. And we'll see you in the new year. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.